Welcome to episode 6 of Mr. This Guy's analysis of murder drones.
Of course, some parts are more valuable than others, ain't they?
Alice ain't always acting altogether apathetic, and her apprentice actually acts a little agreeable, all accepting of advice and not at all antagonistic. Although Alice's actions also aren't always acceptable, I actually admired the adeptness and her amazing aptitude for allocating the cores of abnormal androids. Additionally, her accent was admirable, although arguably another may actually be more aptly armed to make astute use of Alice's articulation.
Dealt with witches for.
If you couldn't tell by the dedication of my hook, I love Alice, and it's primarily because I love characters that are powerful because they're smart. Alice is similar to Doll in a lot of ways, but their intelligence and power bars have swapped. Alice isn't scary because she's powerful, she's scary because she's smart enough to take advantage of a tough situation. Whereas Doll got her god complex from how weak and pathetically uninspired worker drones in the bunker were, Alice has been living the hardest possible life and learned how to get through it, even discovering how to kill the unkillable with murder drones and witches, along with being able to change the structure of both herself and a baby drone. Thinking about it, I actually think Doll's and Alice's dialect could be switched. If you read anything Russian, you'll understand how much harder their lives are and how much tougher that makes them, kind of like Alice. You could even say Doll has the fantastical old western feel of extreme pride and the way she throws deadly projectiles around whenever she feels like it. I also just don't understand how Doll only knows Russian, even if it's what her parents spoke, when she grew up in a place that speaks English. Alice lives on her own with a baby that can't talk. I think it would make a lot more sense for her to speak Russian, but they're still both well executed, and I can understand it would be harder to take Doll seriously if she was Western.
I haven't been honest with V yet.
What did she tell you?
I think the lore in this episode is pretty clear because it's revealing things instead of hinting at them, so, to summarize, Jay is a clone working for Tessa, and both of them ran away from Sin on Earth to come here. Jay still has access to Sin's orders and explains that there are multiple groups of murder drones and separate spires all around the planet. Sin said in episode 5 that she has backups of N's consciousness, so if there can be multiple of J, there could also be more of N and V. But, as a side note, this one has black hair, so I don't think all murder drones are perfect replicas of these three. Also, did you realize how much shinier their hair got in this episode? It made me wonder if the murder drone's hair is shades of gray and so reflective because it's made of strands of metal, a material much easier to replace when they rebuild themselves than whatever wigs are usually made out of. As for the spires, we learned from episode 2 that Sin can consume drones to make herself into a large snake crab, just like she showed herself to be in episode 5. I imagine the pile of dead robots served as a pretty easy way to collect all the parts she needed, so she's making similar piles to prepare this planet for her arrival. Seemingly, so she can destroy the planet. Probably with this null or whatever made gravity go whack. Meanwhile, Tessa is here to destroy these labs that Sin supposedly wants, bearing that skull and trees symbol that we see on the cards of the solver using moms. As what I assume is the original solver user, I can imagine Sin doesn't like the idea of fighting another like her. So she probably wants to get rid of wherever they might be coming from.
Shoot the baby immediately.
Now, this episode is a bit harder to prescribe a single horror genre to because there are just so many different forces at work here. But that in and of itself somewhat says what kind of horror it is. I couldn't find a specific name for it though, so I'm going to call this surrealist horror. My idea of surrealist horror is simply a place that functions on its own logic. The horrors of this genre are going to inhabit a specific place that is outside the norm, and the horrors themselves are going to be very unique in the way that they work. But also common to this genre is the person who has managed to make a living on this horrifically surreal world. Little Nightmares is a really good example of surrealist horror. The surreal environment is the submarine you are on, and each encounter offers a unique challenge to overcome, like this blind man with freakishly long arms that you can lead away with noise-making toy monkeys. Or there are these light-giving eyes that turn you to dust if you're seen by them. And even at the end, there's a woman that you defeat with a mirror. Jurassic Park is also a great example, especially because of the commonality of dinosaurs. They are confined to this one island, but they can be dangerous for different reasons, and of course there are the people involved in creating some of the danger themselves. These stories never end well for the people who try to take advantage of surrealist horror environments. Even things like the mansions in Mario and the idea of weeping angels, things that only move when you aren't looking at them, fit into this kind of surrealist horror. But let's start with the Sentinels. They are extremely unique for the sake of being velociraptors that are only effective against drones and are supposed to ignore any other kind of life form. Despite having the body of something that would be well suited to be a near mindless predator, these creatures live to serve a dedicated purpose and are equipped with a tool precisely fitted to that purpose, and yet they are the most basic of the creatures in this environment. Bo is what really brings in the surrealist nature of this. As per the Murder Drones theme, our main cast is significantly more cultured than the average horror story character, and are able to recognize that there should not be a baby in the middle of this office that had a pile of corpses at the front door. Like the Sentinels, his purpose here is weirder than usual horror because he's serving a master instead of just wanting the victims dead. But the being more of a spider than a baby is, well, just don't try to imagine Bo as a human baby. Regardless, his form and mobility serve his master's purposes of being a simple distraction exceptionally well. Then of course we have Alice herself, whom I found worthy of the thumbnail. Murder Drones is always great at framing, but this shot is just beautiful. I called her the intelligent psychopath, and that in and of itself is its own horror genre. This kind of character feels natural in acting creepy with everything they do, shameless in murder and desecration, even usually enjoying it in a kind of prideful way. They love to make unique use of somewhat everyday objects for their benefit. No Country for Old Men is a great example of the intelligent psychopath. Anton's calling card is this captive bolt pistol powered by air pressure that he uses for just about everything, whether it be direct murder or breaking down doors. They are supposed to be used for knocking cattle unconscious. But they aren't just killers who get away with it. Alice demonstrates that she knows exactly how both murder drones and witches like Uzi and Doll work, and has seemingly dealt with them on multiple occasions through use of the Sentinels or the EMP like she used on this trio. Intelligent psychopaths aren't scary for the traditional horror of a creature you have no hope to defeat. These are just people, but they still manage to create a feeling of helplessness in their victims, who slowly realize the person they're dealing with has absolutely no issue with murder and are plenty smart enough to get away with it. For the sake of surrealist horror, though, she has learned how to live in this absurd environment and even use it to her advantage. This is especially common in apocalyptic settings, like Murder Drones is. An example being this guy in Dying Light 2 that built a tower defended by the infected he managed to trap. Alice takes advantage of the door systems meant to keep her out, and the creatures that were supposed to be made to kill her, thriving and accomplishing what is probably far more than any other regular worker drone has ever done, even having an entire compound to herself and killing a surprising number of murder drones and witches.
Hey, you surface slickers.
To move on to the subject of Alice herself, though, she has her own card and number exactly like Yeva and Nori did. And of course, she's seen Nori before.
Though, ain't seen Zero Two since she left us to die.
But, unlike the moms, Alice is obviously not a witch because she still has to repair herself manually. This drone had one of the neck cards too, so not everyone with one of these cards had the absolute solver powers either. Though why these drones are all dressed so simply and are numbered as being among the first 48 remains unanswered for now. But Alice also mentions how Nori had
Yellow eyes. Don't mind.
something we see take over Uzi later on. By voice and eyes, this is not the same as what happened to her in episode 4. This is truly Sin this time, and although it helps the main cast and barely lasts a moment, Alice also said,
Nori, right? Sure thought killing all them folks was pretty slick.
meaning this could be far worse. Nori has killed a lot of people when possessed by the same force. Something Tessa partially even shows us with her little presentation of Nori. First normal, and then with yellow eyes. And with Sin on the mind, I can't help but think of sweet, juicy, biblical themes, baby.
Heat keeps them sluggish. Ain't our first rodeo.
Alice tells us heat keeps them sluggish. This further encourages the idea of the cores representing sin for the sake of the temptation to drink oil. We know that drones can overheat when they possess a corrupted core, like how the murder drones and Uzi at the end of episode 4 can't go in the sun. But sometimes they avoid drinking oil and seem perfectly fine, like when V interrupts Uzi here. That high temperature thing just goes right away as soon as she's distracted, which leads me to believe the drones aren't actually at risk with this warning. This is the core tempting them to continue drinking oil for its own sake. To put this into a real life context, when you find yourself lying or hating regularly, it becomes so much easier to just keep doing it to the point where you can even stop questioning it. Similarly, the more those with the core give in to the temptation to drink oil, something they can pretty much only get through sin, the better they can cool their systems and allow the core to continue influencing them. Just like how Uzi fully lost control after giving in and eating what she brought in her backpack. If she stopped drinking oil, overheating would make the core sluggish and weaken its influence. Just like how practicing good habits can make it that much easier and that much more natural to continue avoiding sinful tendencies. However, Uzi falls for a different kind of temptation in this episode, a temptation that comes from the kind of helplessness Alice has instilled in her. Uzi is watching N be attacked on a screen while she waits in a bed to be cut to pieces. While we don't tend to be in situations that extreme in the real world, it is an example of how weak we can become to sin when we get desperate. Maybe you don't think you would ever lie or cheat on your homework at first, but suddenly when the due date is only an hour away, and you know you won't be able to write an entire essay that quickly, ChatGPT starts looking like a real appealing option. Sin can give us an easy way out, whether it be lying to avoid punishment, hating someone because that's easier than trying to understand them, or stealing something like a pencil because you want to avoid the embarrassment of admitting you lost yours again. However, these things are always a risk. To lie is to risk the truth being discovered. To hate is to miss out on an opportunity to understand, and you may even make an enemy you didn't need to. And being caught stealing is going to be far more embarrassing than kindly asking for a pencil. Uzi falls into sin's temptation of an easy way out, but there are consequences, and importantly, these consequences don't always fall on you alone. They can hurt those around you too. Additionally, sin obviously doesn't leave a lasting mark on you, but people will still notice these things when they happen, and they will remember it even if you don't.
No!
V doesn't want Uzi falling into Sin's temptation anymore, but she's surprised N has suddenly come to the same conclusion about Uzi's use of her powers. So let's go back to N for a bit. While V was learning about the dangers of falling into Sin's temptation firsthand, N was getting a lecture on the same stuff. As extreme as it sounds, Tessa is essentially arguing that Uzi's sin needs to be punished with the death penalty for the greater good.
I'll need you to choose the universe over one little drone and...
Suddenly, every time N sees Uzi using those powers, it is a reminder of what Tessa has asked him to do. Something he obviously doesn't want to do, but it makes him question himself because he trusts both of them, and now they can't exist at the same time. This is the first time N has seen her powers go so majorly wrong, and it confirms to a degree Tessa's claims that Uzi can't control herself once she starts, and he has to cut off her hand. Necessary as it was, N had always been so adamant about never hurting Uzi at all before this point.
We can't hurt Uzi!
That was before Tessa told him what might be necessary, indicating he's at least giving it some thought.
Ew.
Don't date my robot, please.
He's his own person!
Bold of you to say while speaking for him, Uzi.
Ew, you're mean.
And sheesh, V, watch where you're pointing those things. You can't just be waving your double Uzis all over the... Wait.
You little narc! Get out of my head!
V has, slowly, been getting more comfortable with these two, even if she's still not happy with Uzi in general. She even acts a lot more caring in this episode in a lot of ways, and I think she has plenty of reason to make this change. A long time ago, I said I would come back to V because she just might be the most complicated character in the series, and that time has come. With the addition of this episode, I think V can truly be understood. We know that V is flawed, but also that she isn't purely evil. She likes N enough to respect his direction, and she listens to him to a degree, even when it conflicts with the motivation that comes from her fear of what Sin might do to her if she fails to do her job. V even chooses to hate Uzi for taking N away from her, even though she never made a move on him herself. However, Sin and N aren't her only motivators. She loves attention in a vain kind of way, and, like most traumatized characters in this series, likes to feel in control of her situation. I also discussed in episode 5 how V has given up trying to fight Sin in both forms of the homophone because she lost the battle before she knew how to fight and now thinks it's unwinnable. She goes along with whatever N and Uzi are doing, but never seems that invested, and she doesn't try to act inviting, but nonetheless seems happy to have friends. But that is a lot of different things to talk about. We want to be able to simplify her personality and motivations down to a single concept. So, with all of these things in mind, I present V is a person who has never gotten what she wants, so she has given up hope that she ever will. I mentioned in episode 4 how V knew exactly where to jab at Uzi to make it hurt because they had some very similar struggles, but when Uzi is being possessed by Sin, that is something that V can truly relate to. During the fall of the Elliot family, V never got to control herself, and everything after that event was ruinous for her. Plus, it is right after this that we see V carrying Uzi to safety and then being concerned about Uzi using the powers.
Uzi, I trust you.
Despite the wording used, V never had trust issues with Uzi. V always knew exactly what Uzi wanted. Instead, I think V begins to see herself when Uzi is being controlled by Sin and at risk of losing N. Both Uzi and V wanted attention, a relationship with N, freedom from Sin's control, and a life beyond what they were given. But V never made the right choices in her own life. She never fought back, she never made a move on N. V never tried to change her situation. But rebelling and fighting for better than what she has is the foundation of what Uzi does. V made all the wrong decisions in her own life, but with this final line, she's telling Uzi she trusts her to make the right ones instead. V doesn't trust herself to do the right thing, but she trusts Uzi to. It isn't just a tragedy of life, V is a tragedy of losing hope in herself, even if she grows to have hope in others. And these glasses were such a great way to throw back to how V used to be. That nice, innocent little girl who was falling in love with N. And now fighting Sparky, this velociraptor robot made to kill her. She puts those old glasses back on. Things she must have been carrying with her all this time to have them now. To have some of that goodness, some of that old life brought back. Additionally, everyone talks about that first line, about trusting Uzi, but I think what comes directly before it is just as important.
Nah.
V not only denies that she can ever be what she wants, she denies that she could ever be needed by others. Her toxic persona has convinced even herself that she is incapable of being valued. So she takes this one final opportunity to be worth something, anything, to the people she has come to care about. I really like how they dropped pieces of this song throughout the episode, like here in the beginning. Even using distorted versions of it to create that horror feeling. But it was always there. And as much as we associate this song with V because it played during her sacrifice, it actually always plays while the Sentinels are in the scene. This song was a beautiful accent to her sacrifice, and looking at the lyrics, I think it confirms a lot of what I've said. The implication of this song is that she's in a dream, not reality, not something that truly matters to her. Just like V never got the life she wanted. When it says, I don't have the will to know, I think that references back to her giving up in her fight against sin, saying that she doesn't have the will to even try to know if she could win that fight. And Dancing in the Dark Till We Fall Apart is very reminiscent of the way V has been wasting away in this life. Also, what do you mean Uzi sang this? When did you sing this, Uzi? Did you have a very different young childhood?
Shoot the baby immediately.
Now, Enzark has been pretty slow going so far. Even his betrayal of J and V in episode 1, even if it was a difficult choice, wasn't really character development because he was still choosing to protect someone. What he says to Jay afterward, though, is character growth, and we can see that continue to develop in accepting that V isn't too good either.
V, you kinda suck.
N was completely avoidant of the flaws of these two when he was forced to work with them, and that really kept him from being any help with his positive personality. Uzi is different because N, although he's still choosing a flawed person to protect and befriend, he's admitting to her flaws instead of ignoring them, and he's actively trying to help her through them. This would be a noble character arc to start, but now he's conflicted. We can see there's a kind of awkwardness in N as he meets Tessa again, and that certainly makes sense. She was the one that brought him to life originally, and even as close as she seemed to Jay in episode 5, it was nothing like the excitement Tessa showed when she met N.
Hi, Tessa.
But now these values have been turned on themselves. Tessa, someone he actually owes his existence to, also has a need for him. At base value, he would probably do whatever she said. The problem is that what she wants is for him to give up on helping the one person he actually chose in his life.
Who's this little...
Uzi.
It's important to note, even if he is interrupted in this scene, he never denies Tessa like he denied V in episode 4.
She's a kid, like us, V. What is wrong with you?
And there's certainly some validity to what Tessa is asking of him, setting up nicely for the conflict that will continue to develop in the next episode. But let's address V's sacrifice from N's perspective. I've established it before, but N is very optimistic, going all the way back to believing the best of Sin before she murdered Tessa's family. But he was making progress as a person in overcoming this blind optimism and admitting to himself that certain people just weren't good.
V, you kinda suck.
Only Uzi so far has been worth sticking with because he believed he could truly help her. But now someone he trusts, respects, and even owes his life to is telling him to abandon her. He's already questioning himself, and then V sacrifices herself for them. This breaks him.
No, V, we need you. V, please.
N's self-designated purpose in life is to protect those who need it, to bring out the good in the struggling and encourage people by focusing on the best parts of them. But because of her persona, he didn't see any good in V. By the time she revealed she was noble enough to sacrifice her life for them, N had made it clear that he had given up on her and pushed her away. Now, it's too late for him to make up for any of it. Too late to protect this person who clearly has good in them, and he failed to see it. As sad as V's sacrifice might be, it's far worse for N because his entire world, every value he holds dear, is being torn between the people he's closest to and the ways he's failing to help them like he feels he must.
Uzi, you would really side with the murder drones?
And it seems like Doll is actually going to accomplish her original goal of killing V with this one, since she actually set up the trap that got V to sacrifice herself. But ultimately, Doll's minor case of God complex is fully driving her actions in this one. She was willing to get answers out of Tessa by giving her the bug, but Tessa did the unacceptable by playing with Doll.
Just checking.
making it seem like Tessa was the one in control, and Doll wasn't willing to let any of the others join her anyway, so when they show up, she's right back to being on her own, and by now she's tired of them getting in her way, and finally takes direct action against them with this sentinel trap. But that's all I have to say on episode 6 for now. As always, pass me a like and sub for the algorithm if you enjoyed, but until we meet again, this is Mr. This Guy signing off. And for all those people still asking for a season 2, here's your story beat. This oven that held all the corrupted cores was absolutely the one that Sentinel crashed into when it killed Bo. All these cores could be free somewhere.
Uh-oh! Hope I don't human everywhere!
Tessa, you can't just decide to human everywhere and then proceed to throw your blood at them like you're splashing them in a pool. That weird one looks like he'd drink it up like a warm beverage anyway.